Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today, Fountain Pen Focus Day. And it's going to be the last focus day for a few weeks, as from next week we go into my fountain pen tournament. Today we're going to focus on this. This is a Platinum Preppy. It's a pen that I often overlook. It's a nice pen. It's a cheap pen. I think when I bought it, it was something like $8 Aussie. It's really cheap. And as I say, it sits there often in my drawers and I very rarely pull it out. So I thought, come on, let's give this another go. I love using it. Join me now down on the mat. We'll take a look at the pens, do some size comparisons, some weights and measures, a writing sample. Then I'll give you my thoughts and a score for this pen. Welcome down to the table. Here we've got the Platinum Preppy. Let's do a quick turn around of this. This is in a transparent colour. There's quite a few different variations now of colours and patterns available. It's a plastic pen. You know, it is cheap. It does look cheap, but we'll look at that more as we go along. Let's take a walk through the body. So we start at the top. Top of the cap, we've got 03. That's for the nib size, except in this case it isn't, because the nib on here is a 05. I've got a couple of Preppies and I did swap the nib around, but I wanted to keep the colour here of the cap because the cap on the other one was red. It's fairly flat. There's a little then taper till we come to the top of the cap. This seems to be one width all the way down, so there doesn't seem to be much in the way of tapering. Built into this, and it looks like it's part of the actual plastic, is this plastic clip here. Nice and springy, goes over most materials quite easily. One of the things that I like with this, you can actually see into the pen. There we go, let me get that. You can see the nib there and you can see the feed. There's also this little liner which is where the nib fits into, and that's good because it helps to keep it wet, so I find I have no issues with it drying out. So the cap, as I said, it's the same width. Bottom of the cap, which is here, you can't really see it because we're going transparent to transparent. There's what feels like a bit of a sharp line, and that's the actual drop down to the body. Not very big, but you can feel it when you're rubbing your finger over it. Into the body. The body is tapering down all the way to the end. On there we've got written Platinum Preppy. This one is transparent, so you can see all the way through. You can see that there's a converter in there. Then the top, that's just flat, and I'm thinking that's where the injection molding was happening, so we've got that little dimple at the bottom. Very simple looking pen. Let's take off the cap. The cap just pulls off. This is one where I keep forgetting and I keep trying to twist it off, but it doesn't, it pulls off. Nice and tight fit as well. You can hear that click there as it goes back on. So if we take this off, we reveal this platinum nib. It's a steel nib. It's a very small nib. It actually writes quite nicely. Reminds me a little bit of a Lamy pen, the way that it fits on. It was easy when I swapped it, just slipped off and then slipped back on again. On this model, the section there is transparent. I like this. I like seeing what's going on in the pen. I think that's quite interesting. We come there and then I'm going to unscrew the body. So we've got here plastic and we've got this converter. The converter is sold separately and I paid more for the converter than I did for the pen. I know, stupid, isn't it? You can eyedropper this pen. Look at all those threads. I'd put some silicone grease, and if I could get an O-ring. I've never eyedroppered it though. I like to use the converter. Got a fair bit of ink in there still. So let's pop that back on. I do like the transparent nature of this. And as I say, I think if it was transparent with eyedroppered ink, it looked really nice with that ink sloshing around. Let's swap over and do some size comparisons. We'll start with the standard comparisons, Pilot Metropolitan and the Lamy Safari. looking at it here, they're all the same length, little tiny bit of a difference, but we're talking millimetres. Let's take the caps off. Here we are with the caps off. That platinum nib looks quite small compared to the other two, even compared to the Pilot Metropolitan, which I think is a small nib. Just going to turn the Lamy one around and that one around. This is what I'm saying about it looks very similar. I mean, I don't think they're swappable, but the way that they go onto the feed looks very similar. The Platinum is usable unposted. I'll just show you there. So it's not too bad. It does feel very light. This pen posts very nicely, and I find that extra little bit of weight and that extra bit of length just actually helps when I'm writing. So I tend to use this posted. There we are. There was another look at that. Let's swap all the pens over and look at them all posted. With the pens posted, we can now see there is a difference in the length. The Metropolitan being the smallest, the Lamy being the longest. Let's swap over and look at some pens in roughly the same price range. The pens I've brought in: Jinhao 88, $8 Aussie. Platinum Preppy, $8 Aussie, plus another $10 for the converter. Whereas the Jinhao 88, the converter came with it. And then I've brought in a Winsung 3013. That was $8 Aussie. It's a piston filling pen, but it doesn't post. So that's why this one is unposted, whereas the other two I've brought in posted. There you can see that dropping off. Let's take a look at them unposted. Unposted, the Jinhao 88 and the Platinum Preppy, roughly the same size. That Pen BBS 494, a lot longer. The nibs are starting to look different. On that Pen BBS, that's a number 6 nib. We've got a number 5 nib here on the Jinhao 88, and then we've got that Platinum nib there on the Preppy. Let's pop the caps on. With the caps on, same story really. The Jinhao 88 and the Platinum Preppy getting the same length. That Winsung 3013 ever so slightly longer. Let's move this out of the way and we'll fetch in the rule of measuring. Here we've got the rule of measuring. So with the cap on, that comes in at 13.8 centimetres. Uncapped, 12.2 centimetres. Posted, about 15.3, 15.4 centimetres. The width of the body at its widest part, which is down here, that comes in at 1.2 centimetres. The cap, 1.3 centimetres. And the section doesn't really change much, but it goes from 1.02 up to 1.07. So near enough, it's the same width all the way up. Let's pop the cap on. We'll swap over and fetch in the scales of weighing. Here's the scales of weighing. The full pen, 15 grams, very light. I've got some other pens where the cap is heavier than that. The body, 11 grams. The cap, 4 grams. And that's really why it's not too bad when it's posted, because the cap is so light. Let's get this out of the way. We'll fetch in the notepad of testing. Here's a notepad of testing. Ayush paper, 100 GSM paper, made in India. It's really nice. It's got a nice texture to the paper. It really helps with the tactileness of the pen. So let's do some writing. As I say, I like to post this. So we've got in here, we've got an issue with the line starting there. I think that's because I just had the cap on and off so much. I did some testing just before the video. It wrote straight off. So I'm going to ignore that, but just be aware it can happen. So we've got here a Platinum Preppy with a fine nib. And it was $8 Aussie. The ink is by Lamy. It's part of the Crystal series. And if I can pronounce this right, it's Benitoite. Chances are I've mangled that pronunciation. Drying times, so we go immediate. Looks fairly dry already. 10 seconds. I don't know. I don't think it's worth doing a 30-second test because that looks dry enough. There's a little tiny smudge, but that's it. So on this paper, in today's weather conditions, about 20 degrees Celsius today, that's drying really quickly. I'm going to move the mic down to the page so you can hear the pen write, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it over the dog snoring. I quite like the way this writes. It's very smooth. There's very little in the way of feedback. There's a little bit, and it's certainly not the feedback that I get when I'm writing with a gold nibbed platinum pen. It does feel quite a lot different. It's enjoyable. It's really nice to write with. Line variation. So we go no pressure. I'll add some pressure. We don't see much of a difference. There's no pressure, with pressure, none, with, none, and with. Yeah, there's a little bit of a difference, but not really that much. My flow test. You know, this is an A4 page, makes it all the way across really easily. So time now for my thoughts and scores on this pen and ink combo. First one is pen looks. It's extremely simple, isn't it? It's plastic, it holds ink, it holds a nib and feed, it puts ink onto paper. Doesn't look anything special. The nib, fairly plain, we've just got that P and that 0.5, 0.5 being the size of the nib. And I'm saying that that equates to a fine, could be a medium, but I think it's more of a fine nib. It's a Japanese pen though, so it could be a Japanese medium. The only writing on there is Platinum Preppy. Now there are other versions of this which have got patterns on there. I don't have one, so I can't show you it. Pen looks though, it's simple, 7 out of 10. Build quality. Now I haven't had any issues, but it looks cheap. Well, it is cheap. It writes fine. Have had no issues really with anything falling apart. We've got plenty of threads on there if you want to eyedropper it. Would have been nice if it came with an O-ring fitted, so I'd have to find a suitably sized O-ring if I wanted to eyedropper it. Does not come with the converter. I think that does let it down. But build quality, 8 out of 10. Writing experience. Well, we had a bit of a hard start there. I do put that down to the amount of time I've had the cap on and off when I've been recording this video. It was fine before I started recording, as I've already said. Writes nicely, very smooth. I would have liked to have had a little bit more feedback, but that's a very personal choice. I like the tactile nature of writing. And even though this paper has got that little bit of texture, it was still very smooth when I was writing. It was pleasant, but as I'm just being picky, I would have liked a bit more of the feedback. So for writing experience, 8 out of 10. Apart from today, I've had no issues with any hard starts or skips. You know, once it started writing, writes really nice. Interesting ink. We've got some shading coming through there in the writing. Really like it. Going to fetch in my Tomoe River notebook. Here we go. So here I've got the Platinum Preppy with Lamy Crystal Benitoite. You know, I call it out here. I keep forgetting how nice this pen is. You know, I put it in the drawer and it just sits there, and I should really have it out using it more often. You know, calling out about the nib being smooth. Interesting colour. You know, it's not... this is what's unusual with this ink. I normally like fairly saturated inks. This one isn't, but it's still nice. I'm quite enjoying using it. And again, I'm calling out biggest downside, weight of the pen. So for ink flow, going to give that an 8 out of 10. Comfort. It's usable posted. I'd get away with it posted, but it's very light. That's why I like to post this one. With it posted, feels really nice. The section, it's a nice width. A lot of cheap pens tend to have small sections. Certainly that's what I found. This one doesn't. It's a really nice sized section. There's no lip at the bottom. I hold my pens near the bottom of the section. It's very, very comfortable to use. I enjoy using this. Comfort, because of the lightness, 8 out of 10. Value for money, always an interesting one, isn't it? But it's 8 Aussie dollars. There's a number of different interesting patterns available. I actually like this transparent version, but all the other ones seem to have some transparency as well. It writes well. It writes consistently. It's not bad in terms of the way it's made. I think it is very good value for money. So value for money for this pen, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. That means that the total score for the Platinum Preppy with Lamy Crystal Benitoite is 8 out of 10. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What are your thoughts on the Platinum Preppy? Have you got any? I know there's loads of different patterns now. I think it's about time I invest in some more of these. I just wish I could get in a broad in it, but the medium's quite nice. Please drop your thoughts down below. Let's kickstart the conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.